As we all know, some parts on your e-mountain bike can be highly consumable, but if you use your head, you can often save a load of cash when it comes to replacement. By downgrading some of those components, it's going to make them more durable and last a lot longer. So today, we're taking a look at upgrading your bike by downgrading it. Here's the details. Firstly, it's really important to understand when it's great to upgrade those components versus a downgrade. For instance, an upgrade on your pedals would be swapping out, say, the plastic resin pedals that came stock on your e-bike to something like these alloy versions from Crank Brothers. Can have better bearings, better axle, and better materials in general. But on the flip side of that, if these pedals were to wear out and you wanted something to replace them, you could simply downgrade them to something like this Crank Brothers stamp composite version of exactly the same pedal. Got the same shape, same pins, just a lot lighter on the wallet. And this goes for the same for the drivetrain components. You could go from a high-end group set to a mid-range group set, saving you a load of cash with no performance loss. But we'll go into details a bit later on that one. So what exactly is a downgrade then? Well, it's pretty much the opposite of an upgrade. So take a look at some of the key things you need to consider when downgrading. First up is going to be materials. Now, a lot of people think that carbon fiber is a far superior material than alloy or steel. This is often due to the higher price tag and slightly lighter weight, but alloys and steels are far more durable and a lot less expensive, with way more choice, and the former can now be very similar visually in profile to that carbon fiber. Then there is cost. Just because your parts don't cost as much as the originals doesn't mean they're any inferior or won't perform as well. Often they might be just that little bit heavier, but in e-bike terms, that means that part is going to be more durable and last a lot longer. The only thing with the expensive parts is they're going to be quicker to empty your bank account over those cheaper ones. Then there is weight. Now, the mountain bike industry has been chasing weight for decades, trying to get parts as light as possible. But in the e-bike world, weight isn't really an issue. You just want those parts to last a lot longer than the mountain bike versions. And lastly, brands. Now, some people associate some brands as being budget and some as a bit more flash or a bit more boutique. Now, when it comes to components, if you can buy 4 of the budget versions compared to the 1 of the more boutique versions, then it's a no-brainer really. It doesn't mean that that component is going to perform any better just because it's got a flash logo or a branded name. So what upside should you be looking at when it comes to downgrading these components? Well, first up is going to be durability. Now, this is probably the most important things when it comes to downgrades. Now, if the cheaper option lasts a lot longer than its expensive counterparts, then that's definitely going to be a plus. And a great example of this would be, say, a Dior 12-speed cassette over the SLX version. The Dior one has a steel carrier in the middle, meaning it's a lot more suitable for e-bike use over that SLX version, which has got the alloy carrier in the middle of the cassette. Now, these things can make a big difference when it comes to durability. Then there is design. Now, you can get cheap carbon fiber that rides really well on the trail because it's been engineered really well too. You can, of course, get harsh and stiff alloy components, which when you get them on the trail can give you a harsh ride. But this super pimp carbon fiber one-piece bar and stem looks great and is super lightweight, but it does lack adjustability. A cheaper bar and alloy stem is going to give you way more range of adjustability for the sake of a few more grams. Comfort is something you definitely need to consider too, and different materials give different ride characteristics. For instance, a carbon fiber rim is going to give you a very harsh ride over an alloy version, and it's often the alloy version which is going to give you that little bit more give and a little bit more absorption of all that trail buzz through it, and often come out on top of that carbon fiber version. And this is linked into my previous point where you'll find that a product is going to be more comfortable if it's been well designed with cheaper materials over that badly designed one with more expensive materials. And lastly, cost. Now this is where you will really notice that difference by downgrading the components on items such as your cassette. Say if you're replacing that 4 times a year, you can replace that with a budget option and pretty much half those costs at the end of the year. Right, let's take a look at some downgrades and why you would do it. And first up, let's start with cassettes. Now this is a SRAM XX1 Eagle 12 speed. Now it weighs 355 grams and cost 457 euros. Now compare it to this. This is a SRAM NX Eagle 12 speed cassette and it weighs in at 615 grams and costs 110 euros. Big differences there. Now it's a similar story when you look at Shimano's offerings from XTR down to Dior. Similar kind of savings there. Now these cassettes have pretty much the same gearing. They might be slightly heavier, but you need to ask yourself, do you really need that rainbow or gold colored cassette? Is it going to make that much difference out on the trail? And when it comes to replacing that cassette 4 or 5 times a year, you could replace it for a lot less cash and have pretty much the same performance. Now tyres are a very expensive component to replace on your e-mountain bike, and you don't have to replace like for like on those. Then there can be some massive gains that can be made or lost when it comes to tyres in terms of range, rolling resistance and of course price. Now this is the Schwalbe Eddy Current and it is a monster of a tyre. And it weighs in at a monstrous 1,415 grams. It's got a super sticky compound and it'll cost you £75 to replace. And on this bike here, we have the Maxxis Minion DHR2. It weighs in at 970 grams. It's a triple compound tyre and it costs £46. Now there's some big differences in weight and compound here. Now the Schwalbe tyre is going to give you great grip and protection, particularly when riding in that gnarly terrain. Now the Maxxis offering is going to leave less dent in your wallet. It's going to give you great range from your battery. But the question is, you need to ask yourself, do you need all that grip and protection, or could your trails be mellow enough to let that Maxxis tyre shine? Next in line after the tyres is going to be your rims. Now rims come in lots of different options, and often on high-end e-mountain bikes they're going to be carbon, as this is seen as better performing and lighter weight. Now carbon wheels can actually give quite a harsh ride to your bike. They may be lighter, but they also damage a lot easier too. If you were to hit them, they're likely to crack rather than dent over the alloy versions. And of course, when it comes to replacing that carbon rim, it's going to be even more expensive. Now a downgrade from the carbon version of these wheels would be an aluminium version of it. Now an aluminium rim out on the trail is going to give a bit of a different ride characteristics. It'll actually absorb a lot of that trail buzz. It's a lot more compliant on the ground, particularly on those harder hits. And in terms, it's going to give you a bit more comfort and control out on the trail. And of course, if you hit these wheels hard, they're going to dent instead of crack, and you can often repair those dents with a bit of care too. And of course, they're going to be cheaper when it comes to replacement. So let's take a look at a couple of examples of wheels. So let's talk carbon wheels first. Now these are the Crank Brothers Synthesis wheels. They cost 1,699 euros and they weigh a featherweight 2,034 grams for the 27.5 set. However, if you wanted to replace these with an alloy version, saving some cash, these wheels from Hunt look great. £449 to replace them, and they weigh 2,531 grams for that 27.5 setup. So that carbon wheel set is 3 times more expensive over the alloy version from Hunt. But will it perform or last 3 times better or longer? Now the weight difference is only 500 grams, but you will hardly notice that. It's also worth pointing out here that design is definitely important too. Rim width, free hub materials, and of course spoke count. Just make sure that the cheaper option is still up for the job in hand. And lastly, let's take a look at downgrades when it comes to your handlebars. Well, handlebars come in lots of different options, and carbon, yes, it is lightweight and it does look pretty cool too. but carbon will give you a lot of trail buzz and it is very stiff. Also, you need careful calibration of the torque on all your controls on the bars too, so it needs a little bit more care, and of course when it comes to replacement it is going to be very costly. Aluminium handlebars, well, there are a lot more different options available on different shapes, rises, things like that. And of course, they are going to be that little bit stronger, or if not comparable to a carbon fiber handlebar. And of course, lots of different options and price points for these too. Let's take a look at some of the options. So for the carbon handlebars, something such as this Envy M6 handlebar is going to cost you £180 to replace, and it weighs in at a featherweight 200 grams. And if you're looking for an aluminium handlebar, something such as this Bergtech Ride Wide handlebar weighs in at 300 grams and comes in less than half price at $64.99. So that's two different handlebars at very different prices, over twice the price in fact, for 100 gram weight saving in all on a material that needs more care. And do you really need that 100 gram saving when it comes to e-mountain bikes? So there we have it, a few downgrades that should hopefully help you save a bit of cash in the long run. Just remember, if you are downgrading those components, to make sure they are fit for purpose. Don't want no accidents or failures happening to you guys out there on the trails. And there are of course a few other ways to save cash. Things like using a few different chains on your drivetrain should hopefully make that drivetrain last a bit longer. Maybe fit in cheaper brake pads. You could get 3 or 4 sets to that one OE set of brake pads. Things like that is definitely going to save you cash, but we'd love to hear how you guys save cash maintaining your e-mountain bike in the comments down below. Get involved, give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed today's video, and make sure you subscribe to us here on EMBN and give us a find and a follow on your favorite social media too. Cheers!